closure.
All right, welcome everyone. We want to ask all those that are getting snacks, come on in and please sit in the front. We want our sponsors and our guests to be sure and sit up front. We've got plenty of seating over here to my right. I want to welcome you to the Springer Opera House, the States Theater. We are so fortunate today to have the 29th Let's Talk with the Mayor to be hosted, of course, here at the Springer, to be sponsored by the Cultural Arts Alliance. That includes the Springer and the River Center. So Paul and Norm, thank you so much. Also for historic, it's being sponsored by the Historic Columbus Foundation. I see Elizabeth Barker and her group. Thank you so much for helping us get the word out. And also Uptown Ink in the Bid. I saw Ross Horner, and so thank you all for what you've done to help pull this get together this evening to supply the snacks. And let's just give them a round of applause for being great citizens. Thank you all. Well, as I said, this is the 29th Let's Talk with the Mayor. The purpose of this is, of course, to come to those areas where citizens feel comfortable gathering, not making you come to the mayor's office or making you come down to City Hall or even a city council meeting to ask a simple question, to voice your concerns, or to just give us an idea, a bright idea. We're always looking for those. And so we're going to make some very preliminary, very short comments about things going on in the city to maybe grease the wheel of your mind and some of the things that you may want to know about. But then it's going to be your show for about 75 minutes. You can ask questions. So be thinking about things that maybe you've just always wondered about. Things about your neighborhood or how the city works. Any of that, we've got all the right people here to answer those questions. So let me introduce a few folks. We've got our city manager, Mr. Isaiah Hughley. He can answer it all. He's been with us almost 34 years. So he started at Metra and then made his rounds away around the city and now is our city manager. So we also have two deputy city managers. We have Lisa Goodwin. Lisa handles sort of Parks and Rec and Public Works and several of the bigger departments that you're probably familiar with are under Lisa. Then Pam handles a whole bunch of stuff. Pam Hodge in the back. So planning, transportation projects, things of that nature. And then we have a whole bunch of department heads. I'm not going to introduce all of them, obviously, but we've got department heads here, so if you ask a specific question, we've got the right folks in the room. I want to, of course, recognize our Sheriff, Donna Tompkins, who's here, and our Chief of Police, Rick Boren, who has come with members of his command staff, too. So if anybody has questions related to public safety, we will be able to answer those as well. Again, welcome. I'll throw out just a couple of things. We've just had the Mayor's State of the City about a month ago, and in order to do that, I sort of pulled together milestones, things that we've accomplished. This city is a data-driven city. We keep all sorts of numbers, statistics. We measure our progress. We measure our shortfalls, see how we can do things better. And so the State of the City is an opportunity to kind of quantify whether there's been progress or maybe a step backwards. So what you have in your hands, two things. One, a fold out of just a summary of some of the particulars that we get a lot of questions about. Some of the milestones, the things we achieved throughout the year. So do take a look at that. If you have any specific questions, I will tell you some of those charts just simply in order to fit on the sheet, we had to kind of condense a little bit. But if you go to columbusga.org, you will find that link, and you will be able to scroll to the bottom, and there's much more detailed graphs with a bunch of columns, a bunch more numbers, and so you will be able to see that. We also have a sheet, a double-sided sheet related to statistics, crime statistics. I wanted to give those to let you all know that we keep a lot of detailed information about what goes on in this city. We review it regularly. We see what's getting better. We see what's getting worse. And the Chief of Police, his command staff, we adjust to deal with those trends. And we can give you a lot of information. I don't want to bore people with things they don't want to talk about, but if you want to hear a little bit more about our technology, our capabilities, how we track crime and know what's going on, I think you would be very impressed. And so if somebody'd like to ask about that, we certainly have more information. Before I forget, and I usually do this right off the bat, so I want to apologize, I want to recognize PMB Broadcasting. We are being broadcast live on Boomer 102.5. I want to thank you all on Boomer for your interest in getting this out to the public. Not everybody can be here, obviously, but some of them may be working the evening shift. They do have radios and can listen at work, so thank you for helping us get that out. I'll mention a few other things real quick. We are in the process of putting together our budget. We've made a whole lot of progress, saved our citizens millions of dollars. Again, we can talk more specifically about that if people are interested in the finance. You know, what's going right? What adjustments have you made that saved me millions of dollars? I'd like to hear more about it. And what more do you think needs to be done? What's the next challenge that we need to tackle related to that? We also have been meeting for some time about what to do about our government center because it's aged. It's in, frankly, poor condition. There are a lot of safety concerns about it. I'm not an alarmist, but at some point we have to be realist about it. We've come up with 3 scenarios. One was suggested to council by a commission, but that really opened up the discussion process. And we have a lot of folks that, you know, have opinions, and we also are continuing to gather additional information that sometimes leads us in maybe a little different direction than we thought with the information we had originally. So we continue to discuss the opportunities, the options, and would love to hear from you, your thoughts about that. It has a hefty price tag because we're talking, you know, hundreds of thousands of square feet. And that costs a lot. So we just have to decide what we want as a city, but staying where we are presently is just not going to be an option. It already offers some challenges that are frankly alarming, concerning. So, and we can talk more about that. I know, being that we are in the historic district area, there may be some questions about Uptown, things that are going on, opportunities. There's been some proposals about open container type issues that have been in the media, and I know we've got the right people here to answer those kinds of questions. We also have had some discussion in the media recently about the tank farm that's on the river. That was in the paper today. And so if people would like to hear a little bit more about that, we certainly can share information related to that. So I'll just throw those few things out. I will say generally, this city, I know you can feel it, is so vibrant. We've come so far in you know, recent years particularly. And now that we're on the other side of this recession, I would say that really the world is our oyster, frankly, Columbus, Georgia. We have gotten a lot of things straight. We've got a lot of things in order, and we're ready to take advantage of the opportunities that are coming our way. The future is bright for Columbus, Georgia. And I'll leave you with that thought as I turn it over to the city manager to make a few quick comments, and then we're going to get to you all.
Let me just take just a couple of minutes to welcome you and thank you for allowing me to be your city manager and be a part of the growth and development of the city. And let me just say right off that because someone told me a few days ago that I work for them, and I want you to know I work for you. I work for you, the citizens of Columbus. And the mayor mentioned that we have come a long way in recent years, and I'll just mention a couple of thoughts that come to mind. We are a vibrant city with great things going on throughout our city in all sectors of our city. One of the deputy city managers gave a transportation update at the last city council meeting, and what she presented to you, the citizens, and to our elected officials is that we have hundreds of millions of dollars of road projects, transportation projects going on across this city. Whether it's the Winton Road streetscapes, whether it's the Martin Luther King Jr. Streetscapes, whether it's the Fort Benning Road streetscapes, whether it's a roundabout on at Brennan, Casita, and Fort Benning Road, or a roundabout up at River Road and at Bradley. Thank you. But we've got just great transportation projects going on. Interchange at Casita and 185, a divergent diamond interchange at Buena Vista Road and 185, whether it's the bridge across the railroad tracks there at Martin Luther King. It goes on and on and on. We are widening Forest Road all the way out to Chautauqua. We've replaced bridges. We've got just work going on all over the city in every aspect. I am proud of the 60 miles of walking, bike, and jogging trails that we are connecting here in our city. We're doing the final connection at City Mills and at Bibb Mill through the T-Splosh, the TIA that was passed. With Metra, we've expanded our transportation until 11:30 at night. We've added routes, we've added drivers. We're receiving $22.4 million to expand public transit. And so great things in terms of quality of life are going on throughout our city that I'm excited about. I'm excited about what's going on in Uptown. I'm excited about what's going on in Midtown. I'm excited about what's about to happen at City Village. I'm excited about what we know will eventually happen in the Liberty District. I'm excited about what's going on in the Panhandle. But all over the city, we have great things going on. And so we're here to answer questions tonight. I don't want to prolong it, but I just kind of wanted to throw out a sample, just a sample of the goodness, the good things that are going on throughout the city of Columbus, Georgia, not just in one area of town, but all over town. We are spreading the goodness everywhere. And so I'm excited about that, and we're ready to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. And also, if you all hadn't had the chance to come up front when you came in, we have several departments over here to my left have tables. And so what we'll do is at 7:15, we'll break, and then if you have specific questions about a particular department, maybe you didn't feel comfortable asking about your house in particular, something, then you can come over here, and we have department heads that can answer questions for you. I want to recognize Councilor Mimi Woodson. This is her district. Thank you, Councilor. Stand up. For some reason, I've just lost you. There you are. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you for being here. And with that, let's get the questions started. Don't be shy. Yes, sir. If you would speak into the microphone just so they can get you on the recording, because we're being broadcast. Yes, sir. And state your first name.
Gerald.
Gerald.
And I'm really proud of Columbus, and I think you had a lot to do with it. But I'm concerned. Well, I want to thank you for the rails trails. We really enjoy that. My wife and I do. But I really want to talk to you about. I'm interested in the train, from here to Atlanta.
Ah, okay.
Speed train.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about that, and also I'm concerned about the area at the intersection of Alternate 27 and Highway 80.
Highway 80.
J.R. Allen.
Okay.
J.R. Allen and Alternate 27. about that development up there.
Okay, sort of like the Kitten Lakes area? Is that what you're talking about?
By the Walmart on Gateway, behind that.
Okay.
Isn't that being developed?
Okay, yeah, yep, we got the right folks. I'll talk about the train. You guys get ready to talk about J.R. Allen and alternate 27, and then at the end, we'll throw in some information about the rails to trails and the Dragonfly. How about that? Yeah, and if you have specific concerns about the rail and I don't touch on them, let me know. We have done a passenger rail feasibility study from Atlanta, or from Columbus to Atlanta, connecting our two airports. And the reason why that is so exciting is, one, Columbus is actually more viable than most any city in the United States, frankly, for intra-city connection by high-speed passenger rail, and here's why. First of all, because it's relatively rural between Columbus and Atlanta. Secondly, because we have a lot of right-of-way that is already owned by the city that runs along or in between the lanes of 185 and 85 all the way to the airport, because the airport is on the south side of the city. That means that there's very little land acquisition, and that means that the cost of putting in a high-speed passenger rail is comparatively low. When you start looking at some of these other cities and see the gazillions of dollars, it's going to be expensive. But when you look at per mile transportation, per person per mile transportation, it's actually quite feasible as compared to high-speed passenger rail. The other reason it's very exciting is we're one of the few proposed projects that's not suggesting that we be on train tracks or near train tracks. And the reason why that's a problem in other areas is because the railroads don't want passenger rail anywhere near them. They make their money off of freight. They make their money off of freight traveling on time and efficiently. And passenger rail slows that down because one train has to get off to let the other train go by. There's more safety issues related to passenger rail, obviously, and anytime you've got freight and passenger rail in conflict, it's a whole nother circumstance for the train companies to worry about. So these rail companies, the diesel rail, really disfavor passenger rail, and they usually use all of their political might and their lobbying influence to crush any suggestion of high-speed passenger rail because it interferes with what they're doing. But in our case, since we're nowhere near them, they've actually written us letters of support. They're very happy for us to be where we are suggesting to be and to be leaving them alone. And they're all otherwise for high-speed passenger rail. They think it's a good idea. But let me suggest something that few people have really appreciated, and in fact have an erroneous perception about this proposal, and that is you'll run into people who think, oh, well, it's going to hurt our airport. We're already struggling and only have one airline. What's going to happen to our poor airport? Everybody will take high-speed passenger rail. No, that's actually exactly the opposite. Our airport is one of the biggest proponents for this high-speed passenger rail line because it would make us the second southeastern destination to Hartsfield. Hartsfield has now gotten itself landlocked, frankly. It's surrounded by 285 and the 85, 75 interchange there, and so the connector. And so they really are very limited with what they can do, and I don't think we'll be able to put in another runway or any more gates. And so if Columbus was to have high-speed passenger rail just 60 minutes away, and that's with one stop in Newnan, then we would actually become the low-cost carrier hub for the southeastern United States. So they could be able to free up almost 12 gates in Atlanta by bringing that low-cost carrier hub here to Columbus. And the interesting thing is, our airport right now, as it's presently designed and existing, its present infrastructure, can handle 5 carriers. And we've got 1. So it's a very exciting proposition. Airlines like JetBlue, Norwegian Air, other low-cost carriers that you could think of would be landing here in Columbus. It would mean thousands of jobs for Columbus. It also means you could live in Columbus and work in Atlanta. You could live in Atlanta and work in Columbus. It would make us a bedroom community of each other without all the horrible stuff that comes with being a bedroom community, the traffic, the congestion. It frankly would relieve a lot of the infrastructure problems that they have in Atlanta. So there's more to say about it, but I won't because I could take the whole time talking. It's obviously a very exciting proposition, but it would cost, I think it's the exact amount, it's $42, I think it's $41.50 one way, which is about the price of a Groom ticket. So it's very competitive with Groom. You would be talking, again, high speed, speeds up to 212 miles an hour. It would take 60 minutes from Columbus to Atlanta because there'd be one stop in Noonan. Of course, you have to slow down to stop and then wait a few minutes and then rev back up, obviously. And then there were some curves where you have to slow down. But 60 minutes is pretty good. The fascinating thing, really exciting thing is Noonan wholly supports this because it makes it about, gosh, I can't remember now if it's 15 or 17 minutes, but let's just say 17 minutes from Noonan to downtown Atlanta. I mean, that's a change of quality of life for them because their folks are stuck in traffic for, a long period of time in the morning and the afternoon. So it's very exciting. We're waiting for the state of Georgia, frankly, to sort of catch up with us because for many years people have had frankly, a misimpression about high-speed passenger rail. They think of it as Amtrak, the old Amtrak model that has worked successfully in the Northeast but has struggled everywhere else. I would say, importantly, the proposal and feasibility we did showed our high-speed passenger rail to Atlanta being profitable in the first year at a 1.2 profitability ratio. The reason why that's important is because with a 1.2 profitability ratio, you can service debt, so you can put out bonds and pay investors with your profits, you see. So that means you don't have to have subsidies coming from the government. There are rail lines, high-speed rail lines, that are being wholly built by the private sector, like all aboard Florida from Miami to Orlando. So again, I could go on, but that's enough about that. If other people had additional questions, I'm happy to elaborate. But it's very exciting. We have laid the groundwork. We have built the relationships. We've been to visit the Federal Rail Administration in Washington, D.C. The Federal Highway Administration, they know about us. And as, frankly, the federal government and the state government catches up to Columbus, Georgia, we'll be at the top of the list. So we look for every opportunity to push that because it would be transformative to Columbus, Georgia, and yet it would allow us to keep our community as it is now. So in the sense of, neighborhood communities, it wouldn't explode us to be Atlanta, in other words. So let's see, and you had other questions. Yes, Rick, can you talk about the J.R. Allen and alternate 27, please?
The area I believe you're talking about is out there at Manchester Expressway, where J.R. Allen comes into play there as well. It's the old Swift bowling site at that point. The developers who actually control that property now have named it Midlands Commons. That's their project name for it. They are looking at primarily more of a shopping center complex, but there's also some interest in housing out there. Some office use potentially, things of that nature. We are encouraging them. We have been meeting with them off and on for about the last 6 to 8 months now with that. We are encouraging them to look at one of our zoning classifications, which is called a planned urban, excuse me, it's a planned mixed urban development area itself involved with that, where they actually have to come in and really plan that area out and lay it out for us more than anything else. The real concern we've had with them, and we've shared this on numerous occasions, is the traffic that may be generated from that site and how they're going to handle it and how they're going to deal with that. They've been very receptive in listening to our ideas and thoughts about that and what needs to be accomplished. We're still working with them on that process, but eventually it'll have to go to our Planning Advisory Commission for consideration and a recommendation, and then from there it goes on to council. And we're probably at least looking at at least another 2 months before that even comes to any type of fruition here for the public to actually know about. But we just know that we are working on that project right now, trying to make best interest for both parties, the city and for the developers as well. We're trying to make sure that we don't do any more damage out there, because we know that the issue of traffic we have out there in that particular now. And you should know that just so everybody knows, that is a troublesome spot for us right there at Beaver Run and Kitten Lake and Flat Rock and those areas. We have been working with Georgia Department of Transportation to synchronize those lights a little bit better. Traffic seems to be flowing somewhat a little bit smoother, but it's still on our radar every day to make sure that we don't intensify that problem. So that project is going to be coming forward here, I hope, in a very short time.
Certain times of day, traffic is out there.
It is. But we
Repeat the question, Rick. So-
he's asking about the traffic. Tim, by saying about the traffic is terrific out there, and it really is. Like I said, we've been working with GDOT, though, to help alleviate that. They've actually come in and installed some new software and some hardware in those cabinets out there for those traffic signals, where they can actually adjust that traffic on an hourly basis now, instead of having actually come out on site and make those adjustments. So that's helped. They are monitoring that, or at least we hope they are monitoring that. And eventually, our intention is really to take that whole system across the entire city itself. But right now, we're really trying this out and see it. And like I said, from what I can see and what I've heard, traffic is moving a little bit easier, a little bit quicker out there than it was, say, 6 months to a year ago.
And I can say, sir, that as the developer gets more particular specifications related to what it is they propose to do, as Rick said, it will go through our process, and there'll be an opportunity for public input. And so you'll have the opportunity to appeal to your counselors, to appear if you'd like to speak out about whether you're for it, against it, or would like some adjustment to it. So just keep your eye open for notices in the paper and things of that nature. Okay? Thank you. And you asked too about, and whoever's next, y'all get ready to go. But you asked too about, or mentioned the Rails to Trails, and yes, you probably have been seeing all the tremendous trail work down here, but also throughout the city. We will have 60 miles of connected, dedicated bike trails and pedestrian trails in the city in a very short period of time, perhaps by the end of this year, but certainly by the end of next year. And that is a great feat. We need to thank some of our private partners who have invested in that, who frankly had a vision of how it might be done and be done quickly. That's the Community Foundation, Betsy Covington, Ken Henson, a lot of folks were thought outside the box of how the city could partner with other entities in the private sector to move quickly, move less expensively, and get our citizens a very high quality amenity. It's actually going to be a separate transportation grid. You know, there will be a day, and I know for all the people who are not millennials, they can't fathom this. But there will be a day when the millennials who don't care, many of them don't care to own cars, they can get around on bikes, just like they do in some of the European cities. They will have that option, particularly if they live closer in town. So thank you for recognizing the investment that's been made in that. All right, what else? Yes, sir. Yeah, if you would just move that microphone there, because we're being broadcast and it won't pick up your voice without it. There you go.
All right. Excuse me, I'm Stephen,
Stephen.
and I have a two-part question. First part is, what has been the net result of moving from 2 days a week garbage pickup to one? And the second part is, what is the future of our landfill and the other for yard clippings, et cetera?
Aren't you good? Thank you so much for those questions. And Pat, I'm going to let you pick up any details or correct anything I say. I'll give you a 30,000-foot response first. It's actually been tremendous. It's a little over $400,000. Maybe Pat can give us the specifics of $400,000 of a budget avoidance, because we were going to have to start to incur at least that much to maintain, in addition to what we always were. I will tell you, we were very much behind the 8 ball in being able to fund 2-day-a-week household pickup. Now, don't forget, at that time, we were going by your house 5 times. 2 times for household pickup. We had, of course, recycling. We picked up your, once a week, we picked up your natural yard waste, and then we would go by for what we call white goods, and that would be like your old water heater, the washing machine that broke down and is no good to anybody. We would come by and pick that up. So really, you were getting 5 services a week. Extraordinary level of service. I don't know that that level of service was being offered by anyone, but the twice a week household pickup was only being offered by 2 other jurisdictions in the state of Georgia, and they were charging in the neighborhood of $36, $38 a month, and they were limiting how many cans you could put out. So if you wanted to put out, you could put out 2 cans for $36 or $38 a month, but if you wanted to put out 4 or 5 cans, then you paid a surcharge for the extras. So that is one thing, and so there was some budget avoidance. We also increased recycling, I think it says 237%, and added years to our garbage dump, which Pat's going to tell you about, and that, sir, is saving us, it's delaying millions of dollars in costs we have. So, Pat, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
I'd love to talk about the landfill. 7 or 8 years ago, we were looking at a life expectancy of 27 years. Since then, with recycling, diverting some of that material out of the landfill, and with operational changes we've made to increase compaction and to handle it better, we have now got a life expectancy of 37 and a half years. So rather than going down 7 years, we've gone up to 37 and a half, 38 years. And we are looking at other ways to extend that even more. That's for Pine Grove Landfill, for the municipal solid waste area. In our other landfill, of course, is on River Road at Granite Bluff, and that's for our green waste, trees, grass, leaves, what have you. And that has some future life in it if we need it. We'll take some construction, but we several years ago purchased a grinder, and we have been grinding the material and the tree limbs and bushes and all of that coming in, and we have been running a composting program. We have also then been having a lot of the ground material being hauled off, not paying for it, but actually exchanging services to help us reduce all of those trees and what have you. So we're looking very good in that arena. We're looking in the future, next couple of years, to moving the composting out to Pine Grove, because we'll have more acreage and more area, so we can compost even more of that. That composting material can be used then for cover on the landfill at Pine Grove, which will cut down on us having to acquire dirt and other material, and we hope to get to divert most of that green material and not have to do any landfilling of green material. So both of those are going extremely well, and we've got a very bright future there. I think we can still extend the life of the landfill even more than we already have.
And I appreciate you asking about the 2-day-a-week garbage, because it was change of habit. And so not everybody was happy with that, but it was something that was frankly absolutely essential for us to continue on as a city. It was something we could not sustain financially, and frankly, we were having a lot of trouble even sustaining it day to day. I mean, there were times in which the rate we were charging was not enough to buy the trucks we needed to buy, and so we would get to work and not be able to field the trucks we needed to provide 2-day-a-week service, and not everybody was being picked up, and it was just a mess, and it was only going to get worse. I want to recognize, for those who are on the radio, they don't know that Steve is a Boy Scout leader. And so Steve has obviously brought a whole gaggle of folks with him. And Steve, why don't you tell us what troop you're with?
We're with Troop 6, and this young lady right here, she's the one that sort of got us all together with this, and she works at the police department.
Oh, fantastic.
So,
Great. Well, we are so appreciative to have the Boy Scouts here. They're so naturally interested in civics, our future elected officials, our future community leaders, and you'd be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, how many folks, even adults, know very, very little about government and civics and how as a community we function. And so thank you for taking the time and working with the Boy Scouts to shed a little light at a fairly young age of how this community works. It's so important, so thank you. What else? Don't be shy. Yes, ma'am. Can you move to this microphone? Thank you.
It's about the recycling. If it doesn't get picked up, or say maybe the day after it's picked up, I suddenly have a large amount of recycles, is there somewhere I can go and put it in a dumpster, you know?
Yeah.
Because I haven't been able to find one.
Okay, we've got some information on that, and tell me your first name.
Oh, I'm Nancy, I'm
Nancy.
sorry.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
All right, yes, we do have some places that can help. Now, if it's not picked up because you put it out late, that's on you. But if it's not picked up because we had a new driver and you're at the end of the cul-de-sac and he didn't see your house back there, you can call 311 and say, hey, you know, they didn't pick me up, they didn't pick up the recycling, or frankly even the garbage. And we have radios and we can send them back out and they'll come, you know, in a couple of hours, if not immediately, to pick that up. So just know that if it's our fault, we'll come get it. But let's say you forgot it was Tuesday, or you had a big family event and had a whole lot of recycling. What do you do, Pat?
We actually have 4 drop-off points around the city for recycling. One is at Cooper Creek Park, and there are big dumpsters type trailers that you can put your stuff in. There's one down where the old recycling center was on 22nd, right off Victory. There's one on Sacerdote Lane, right off Chautauqua, across from Rutherford Prison, and we have one at the Welcome Center.
Is that on, can we go on the website and find that if we forget, Pat?
Yes, you can.
And would it be on Public Works page?
It would be.
Okay. And also you can dial, I hope everybody knows, you can dial 311 from your hard line, or you can dial 653-4000, thank you, 653-4000, and ask any such question or report an issue anytime. So thank you. Thank you, Pat. All right. What else do we have? Yes.
Hello, my name is Susan. I know we have a problem with violence, murders here in Columbus, and as it seems to be part of this whole opioid crisis across the country, there's not that much that Columbus itself can do to stop the influx of opioids, because you just can't put up guards at the border to Muskogee County. But the motivation for a lot of people to use drugs is hopelessness. So what can we do in those neighborhoods that are especially hard hit with this to help the people with jobs, with training, with all kinds of things, so they just don't feel so hopeless that they need to turn to drugs?
You know, Susan, you really put your finger right on it. It's a very complex question. I don't know if you thought it was simple, but you're so right. It's a lot of people think, well, all we need to do to solve crime is put a ton of police officers out there, and then all the problems are going to be solved. But if there's not opportunity, and if there's hopelessness, if there's blight, if there's a breakdown of neighborhood, family structure, as there is a lot of times in excessive poverty and places where there's a lot of community blight, there's just not that safety net. No neighbor is taking those kids in because that neighbor is struggling with the same issues that family has. And you just get this perpetuation of hopelessness to where the cost-benefit analysis of engaging in highly risky behavior, whether it's drugs or crime or whatever, personal risk of some sort, is just not that big a deal. You know, somebody with all the opportunities in the world and all the comfort of the world is going to think twice about anything that's going to forfeit that lifestyle and land them in jail. But when someone else is looking at a pretty cold, loveless, no family structure, no neighborhood structure and support system, the cost-benefit analysis is a lot different. So if we want to help our police officers, our law enforcement agencies, we need to be investing in the types of things you're talking about, and we have tremendous partners with Columbus Tech, Columbus State University, the Chamber of Commerce, who now has changed from the old model of only caring about, from decades ago, caring about banks and finance companies, to caring about what our poverty rate is, because they understand that is a drag on economic development. It's a drag on our workforce capability here. And so they've really changed their focus for our Development Authority and our Chamber of Commerce as a primary objective to help us reduce poverty. Of course, our school system. So I want you to know that we can talk to you about any number of after-school programs, crime prevention programs that cater to middle school students, particularly partnerships with our school district and our Parks and Rec. Of course, investments in Parks and Rec is not just for fun. It's actually for productive, constructive activities for kids to channel their natural energies into things and activities that are not dangerous for them, either physically or dangerous for them in their futures. And so we do a whole lot mentoring programs. There are so many cooperative nonprofit organizations that we work with, literacy programs. We fund some of them out of our crime prevention office. Seth Brown, I think, is here and can speak about some of those if you were interested. So I want everyone to know that when we talk about all these different things that people sometimes think, well, why is the city involved in that effort in an after-school program? Why is the city involved in handing out these crime prevention grants that have to do with middle schoolers? That all those dots connect. And we're trying to do our part to create vibrant, prosperous communities and hope and a connectedness, because the more connected you are, the less likely you are to engage in risky behavior that puts your life and your future at risk. Now, for the police officer aspect, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Boren, and certainly if Sheriff Tompkins would like to speak to it, I'd like for her to as well. We are a dense urban community. This is not, nor has it ever been, Mayberry, okay? And sometimes people's memories grow a little foggy with the romance of the past, but we've struggled as a city. Certainly other cities like us struggle with issues. One thing that I'm hopeful about, and as you well know, anybody here well knows, a lot of times I'm criticized because I state the bald-faced fact that our crime has decreased 39% since we invested in the OLOS. A lot of people say, well, we've had more murders, and that is true. We had more murders this past year than we had since we've been keeping statistics in the way that we've been keeping statistics. But we've had so many less. We're at lows, as you can see on those charts, 25-year lows, 34-year lows, 28-year lows, on 15-year lows in auto theft, larceny, burglaries, even aggravated assault. We're having, much improvement. So those things are going down. And I would just say that is good progress. We need to keep doing the things that are allowing us to make that kind of ground up. 39% is way ahead of the crime drop that the state of Georgia in the same period of time has had a decrease in crime about 25-26%. So we're besting the state of Georgia, which of course includes predominantly Atlanta, but a whole lot of other population too. So we're doing a great job with reducing crime, and my hope is when it goes to the violence, the murders that is intolerable and we will not certainly condone, and we work to fight every day, is that I truly believe we're creating less criminals. I think the people who are doing those advanced violent crimes today are people who have been engaged in criminal activity since they were 13, 14, 15 years old. And when they were 13, 14, 15 years old, they were committing larcenies and burglaries. And that's why in 2008, 2009, our numbers were off the charts. I mean, really, we had 15,500 crimes, I think, in 2009. In This past year, we had 9,600 Part 1 crimes. It's a huge difference, and that's mostly in those entry-level crimes. So I think we're creating less criminals. Less people are taking chances, and I think it's because of these programs, because of these training opportunities that we have. And I believe that is going to mean less people will be as hardened as it takes to pull the trigger to kill another human being. Another observation I would say is that in Columbus, not that this is any solace to the fact that we're losing a life, but the murders tend to be of two types. Domestic, which has been, so far this year, I think all but one have been domestic. A couple of years ago, we had over 50% of our murders were domestic violence. The other type of murder we tend to have in Columbus, Georgia is criminal and criminal. They're fighting over drug money, they're fighting over something, but they're engaged in very bad activity together. That's not to say, oh, well, then that means I shouldn't worry about it. We worry about it, but it's not the random type of crime. If you're living a life of good choices, safety, if you're not living a life of criminal risk, your chances of being a victim of murder or violent crime is extraordinarily low in Columbus, Georgia. Not to say it's never happened, not to say it wouldn't happen, it's just very, very low. And so that means something to the law enforcement agents. Did you have a question before Chief Bourne gets up?
I would like to add that I think your emphasis on these diversion programs is an excellent plan, but you need to keep the value of those programs in front of the general public's eye. Now, a city is remarkably like a person with diabetes. If any diabetic, however vibrant they may seem to be, allows a diabetic wound to fester, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
Any city that allows a blighted area to fester is also in trouble.
Yes.
You know, I used to live in Los Angeles, and they did marvelous things with their downtown, and they ignored South Central.
Yeah.
And then when South Central exploded, everybody stood around with a dumb look on their face. Oh dear, oh my.
Yeah.
Well, we can't allow our blighted areas to fester.
Yeah.
And I think one of the ways you do that, not just the diversion programs, but you have to, you know, for all those people who don't live in those blighted areas, you have to make it clear that these programs are exceedingly valuable to the community as a whole.
Yes, thank you. Chief Bourne, and as he makes his way to the microphone, Mr. City Manager, when they're done talking about crime, I'd like you to talk about how much we have invested, the millions of dollars that have been invested in South Columbus to build infrastructure in previously blighted areas to allow those communities to be refortified. Because you're right, we're not turning our... Uptown's wonderful, and we're all so excited and hoping those ripple effects, you know, go out and spread, but we're not counting on that. We've been investing in other communities with TADs and things like that. So I'll have the city manager speak about that. Chief.
Well, I think that you saw, and I think that you have in front of you, copies of the crime stats that we've had in Columbus. We went all the way back to the 1970s as far as keeping statistical information and numbers. And I've been the chief now for 14 years. And we went back, I was especially concerned with that period of time. And during that time and prior to, back to 1980, I think you'll see on your chart that starting in 85, the numbers started decreasing slightly and are still decreasing. We have a very aggressive police department. We have aggressive patrols. We aggressively go into some of the blighted areas where we tend to see some crimes that fester, but always remember, the police department cannot do anything about the economy. We can't do anything about education. We can't do anything about jobs, bringing jobs here, nor training here. We get the residual, and the residual is what happens in this community as a result of some of those things. Based on that, we're in the schools. We've been in the schools. We start in the 5th grade in the local schools. We have a 5th grade program, a 7th grade program, an 11th grade program, and the guys are constantly in and out. They're constantly concerned with the different programs, even that the schools do. Whatever the schools involved in when they call us. When there's problems, we'll go out and put a police car right in front of the schools, and that's what you probably have seen recently with the school shootings. You know, we have to have a presence, even with a police department that's short. We're short a number of officers at this time, but we're working on that. We have an excellent crime prevention program, and this group of officers will continue to work with our young people and our churches. We've been involved with churches recently with active shooter scenarios. We've also been with a pastor's police academy training that we have, and I think we have a graduate right over here of the pastor's academy, and it's been extremely successful when you know your police officers well enough that you can pick up the phone and call one of them on the phone and say, "Hi, I need some help. This is what the problem is," and we go out and we work with them. I think that we're extremely blessed in this community for our elected officials as well as our law enforcement personnel. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Sheriff Tompkins.
I hate to go behind him. He's very good. We don't do exactly the same thing they do, but we are here to help them. And I heard him talking about all the programs they do. We do a lot of things out in the community. The Sheriff's Office, I believe, is very proactive about being with the community. We're doing, for example, an autism event, an Easter egg event. We're trying to build those relationships with children so that they feel that law enforcement is safe and good. And so we're always reaching out like that. But as he was speaking, I was thinking, wow, you're kind of getting them on the front end, but the Sheriff's Office gets them a lot on the back end once they've come into our facility. We do so many things in that jail that we do amazing. We do. You know, we reach out, and we have a lot of support from the ministers in this community. They come into our facility. We work with the library. We have reading. We're working with inmates getting GEDs. We're working with, you know, we have a fatherhood dorm where we're trying to say, hey, if your life's not important, think about your child. Their life's important. And, you know, we know that if you're not spending time with them and you're not being a parent to them, they're going to grow up like this. So we're reaching out once you kind of come in contact with us more. And I'm very proud of all that we do on the inside to try to keep you from coming back once you've made that first mistake.
And the drug treatment, I mean, you do, they're really, the Sheriff's Department, you know, the Sheriff's Office, so many people, they know we have a jail, they know we have a police department, and I guess they just think we're doing the rudimentary things, and it really is, as you said, amazing how much energy and resources we put in trying to help people change their lives. Our drug courts, for instance, have saved a lot of people's lives and put a lot of people back
Veterans
into meaningful
courts,
relationships.
veterans dorms, drug courts. You know, there's a new thing that I'm sitting on to establish a family court, which kind of at everything about the family once someone has been involved or they suspect that they're involved in drugs and things like that. So I think that there's a lot of good people in this community reaching out and trying to do their part to be part of this community and keep us on the right path. And if you've gotten on the wrong path, redirect you and get you onto a better path.
Thank you.
Sure.
And a lot of people, it's kind of confusing. We have a jail, which is, of course, under the jurisdiction of Sheriff Tompkins, and they house some people who have made some very bad decisions, to say the least, and some folks who are simply waiting for trial. And then we also have our Muskogee County Prison, which is part of the state system. We've got our two deputy wardens here, Deputy Warden King and Thomas there. Thank you so much for being here. And I wanted to just tell you that in addition to what the Sheriff's Office is doing at the jail, they actually have the #1 GED program for county prisons in the state. They give out more GEDs. This is a relatively new program. They give out many times more GEDs. And they also have several hundred of the folks that they're housing there involved in various programs to understand how to dress for interviews and understand how to interact more successfully with people once you are out. And they're dealing with well, not quite as hardened criminals, although it's not a cakewalk, but folks who can, my point is, folks who could be reclaimed and returned to meaningful, productive lives. And so thank you all for what you do. Hopefully, that's a one-stop place and they get on with their lives after that. And thank you for thinking ahead and being visionaries and programs that help them. Okay, we'll certainly answer any other questions about that, but I wanted the city manager to speak to Susan's point of, is the city doing anything about blighted areas? And if so, what?
That's a big question, but I do appreciate, Susan, your observation about Los Angeles and how they took care of downtown and left blight in other places, and you're going to get a bad outcome when you do that. And I'd like to think that we have not done that, and we are not doing that. In fact, when I think about what we've done in Uptown, we've done a great work. We're even about to get 2 hotels in Uptown. We've done great work in Midtown. You remember, all of you remember, if you're old enough, the old Columbus Square Mall and what happened in that area, how it became blight and grass growing through the asphalt, just an old building, and look at that area today. But I was talking to Councilor Woodson day before yesterday, and I said to her, I made this comment to you, and we talked for probably 45 minutes. I said, your district is one of the more progressive districts of all of the other 7 districts, in my opinion, in this community. And I started naming all of the things that are going on in your community. And I was rattling them off. And when I was done, you said to me, yeah, that's good, but I'm concerned about poverty, is what you said to me day before yesterday. And then I had to start pointing to things that we've done, Mayor, and you've asked me, but we acquired 40 acres right at Fort Benning Road and Casita Road. And we were able, after assembling that property, pulling it all together, we didn't know they were going to come along and want to build a $56 million new Spencer High School. $56 million. We had already, and then they're talking about a sportsplex out there that will come perhaps a little later. We had already planned to streetscape Fort Benning Road. We are aligning Brennan Road, Casita Road. We're going to do a roundabout there, and we're going to streetscape Fort Benning Road from there to Victory, and then from Victory across to the Fort Benning Gate. It's going to have a 12-foot wide walking, bike, and jogging trail that's going just like what's going along Linwood. And you're going to have your trees and so forth. If you go on down to Old Casita Road, where it goes towards Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church, for example, we're putting a roundabout there. And but those are just a couple of things that we're doing there. But the Housing Authority went in a few years ago, and I'm a product of the old Baker Village. They tore down the old Baker Village, and we've got Ashley Station there now, a beautiful complex. The Housing Authority has done a phenomenal job. Then they came along and they tore down the old Booker T. Washington, BTW, right along Veterans. And you see the Columbus Commons there, beautiful structure, but they replaced some of those, the old Chapman homes. They redid the old Chapman homes to make it something beautiful. And so there's housing development. If you go out Victor Drive where the Walmart is located, the city bought the old dilapidated apartment complex to make the Walmart project viable. We go in oftentimes and we purchase property, we assemble property, and we prepare it for growth and economic development. We went in and we spent $37 million to deal with a flooding problem in the Liberty District. Below the 6th Avenue, from the river all the way up to 14th Street, we spent $37 million to put an underground infrastructure in there, and we streetscape 6th Avenue all the way from Victor Drive all the way up to 15th. Look at the lighting fixtures that we have, and the new signal poles that we have, the black decorative looking poles and things that we've had there. But Walmart, believe it or not, was a game changer for that part of that area of South Columbus. And so we continue to go in. We've acquired property, the old K&W, we spent $7 million on the Brown Avenue Bridge. But the nightclub that the chief and the mayor and others shut down, the old K&W, where there were several murders, we went in and we acquired that nightclub, and we've demoed that nightclub, and so we own that property. The old Kendrick Pecan across the street, someone just purchased that property, and they're constructing a Family Dollar, I believe, there. But we own around Andrews Road, we own 12 acres. We own the old Flournoy building, for example, and then we own an additional 12 acres. And so we are assembling property, preparing for future growth and development. If you go on up and you go around Brennan Road, where I talked about the roundabout it's going to be, and we're going to align that, we own 17 acres there. And Public Works, if you go down Casita Road from 10th, I'm just telling you about beautification things and things that we're doing to deal with blight. You will see trees planted along Casita Road, because I call Public Works on a regular basis in areas where there's blight, and I ask them, required them to go out and clean up Casita Road and plant trees. And I just called you 2 weeks ago about Andrews Road, and I see that you've already planted some trees out there. I called them about Brennan Road. I wanted cars off the right-of-way, the taxi cabs out there, and I wanted them to go out and enforce inspections. So I want you to know that we are focused on blight. So Andrews Road, Brennan Road, Cedar Road, I call them personally to go and address these. And so if you go and you see the trees with the greenbacks around them, know that we are working. And so with the Walmart structure, you got the little off-site, little shopping area going on there. And but with the Spencer High School and the Sportsplex, trust me, and the interchange, we're going to spend $56 million on the Casita Road I-185 interchange. That's going to open that area up for further business, economic development opportunities. And so the Buena Vista Road interchange is a $50 million project that we're doing, the Diversion Diamond. I think there's only one other Diversion Diamond in the state of Georgia, and that's in North Atlanta. And then the bridge across the railroad track to ease the pain for those who live in that area, we're spending $40 million on that project. And so we are focused on the whole. The whole is off Benning Drive, Mayor. You required that we go out there and take care of the whole. And it was a drug prostitution chief, and so we went in and we bought the hole. And we tore down the hole, chief. And so we are focused on where there's that type of activity. We go in, we acquire property, we assemble property. Laura Johnson is in here, and she's our community reinvestment person. But we are acquiring property, assembling property, just like we've done in the Liberty District. And so the effort is where there's blight, we try and go in and deal with that, clean it up, prepare it for growth and economic development. And so we've come along, and we've done a TAD in Uptown. But when they came to us about the TAD in Uptown, Richard Bishop, I said, Richard, we need a TAD in the Liberty District. And I says, we'll work with you on the TAD in Uptown if you will include the Liberty District. And so it's two different TADs. But when it happened for the Liberty District, the 6th Avenue at Liberty District area, Uptown paid for it because we felt like the TAD would be that economic development tool while it's helping Uptown, is going to help the Liberty District too. So we are focused on poverty, we're focused on blight, and so those are just some of the things that we're doing. I had the planning department to calculate all of the business investment in the area, and Rick, I can't remember, I had you all to calculate what has been invested in the South Columbus area along Victor Drive. It's also an enterprise zone. That's another economic development too that we have out there. But it was, I mean, the hotels, I know you don't remember either, but it was millions and millions and millions of dollars. And you can't see it all when you just look out at it. But trust me, it's all coming together. And so we're going to continue to fight blight. We're going to deal with it. We are going to assemble property. We're going to acquire property. We're going to develop all of the economic development tools that we can. And we're going to make them available to those who are interested in investing in those areas and bringing those communities back.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I just wanted to go through that because I think sometimes people just do not appreciate the hundreds of different ways that we're attacking problems like poverty and blight. Of course, it took us 30, 40 years to get in the situation due to, super suburban, the super suburbanization of Columbus, like many cities had, that caused the depopulation, the disinvestment in those areas. And now we have to go back and build markets. I mean, the city manager said, and of course, Councilor Woodson knows this, that we celebrate the Walmart on Victory Drive. And there's probably people in this room, people listening to this, who are laughing. Walmart? I mean, like, well, that's some big deal because Walmart's everywhere. Let me tell you what, they didn't want to go because we were asking them to create a new market there, to be the first one, and it was essential that they go because once they start getting their register receipts and you start seeing those revenues of that store, that's a benchmark that other store owners and other investors look to see if their business would be profitable there. We didn't have one. We didn't have a national, that type of an entity that could have that type of data that other investors could look to see that that area was as viable as we thought it was. And so we did a particular study that showed Walmart that we would make as much money for them at that location as they made at their store, and I'm making it up, but number 235 in New Jersey and number 419 in Phoenix City, or in Phoenix, Arizona. And when we showed them that data, they started building that Walmart, and it has been exactly as was predicted. And now I'm telling you, it's at a tipping point. I'm going to give you a stop tip right now. If you want to make some money, go buy yourself some land in South Columbus, because it's about to be this amazing, vibrant collection of neighborhoods.
Well, just real quick, you reminded me when you said that, we were sitting in your conference room. They had taken Walmart off the table for that area. I mean, it was off the table. And we said, no, you said it. We can't let this happen. And we called in, but that's it. Absolutely. And we said, we got to figure out a way to make them understand that this is a good location and it's a good deal. And they came to council. That Walmart 2-3 weeks ago is the #1 performing Walmart in the state of Georgia. And then what I failed to mention too is Westville is relocating to the district, and that's a big deal. And then you've got the National Infantry Museum. There's a lot going on in that area.
Don't ask us what we're doing for blighted areas unless she wants to suck up all the time. I'm sorry. She didn't know that was a softball, but it was. But no, it's this community does, as the sheriff alluded to, we do amazing. That was an instance of amazing because they kept telling us no and no and no, and they had made their corporate decision and they had no reason to want to negotiate with us, no reason to want to quote-unquote throw us a bone. And we knew it would be successful, and we just never say die in Columbus. We figure out a way, and that's the great thing about your community. So when you're thinking of all the bad things that you don't think we did up to par, remember that. We have pulled some rabbits out of the hat, and we're going to keep doing it in our areas that are particularly distressed. Yes, ma'am. We need to get you a microphone, though. Oh, no, you do, because we're being broadcast, and they can't hear you unless you're speaking. So we're going to pass this down to you. Yeah. And just tell us your first name.
My name is Gladys. I appreciate all the work that was done with the Walmart and getting it into that area. However, at the same time that Walmart is put out there, other businesses were closing and have not been replaced, such as the Winn-Dixie's. And I understand they're all about to close in this area. We are in this south, from Buena Vista Road over, there are very limited grocery stores. We're very limited in banks and other facilities that the people in those areas need. And so I would like to see the Chamber of Commerce and the city come together and work with the people in the area and bring back some of those businesses we've had. There were numerous banks out on St. Mary's Road, Buena Vista Road, and now the closest bank you get from St. Mary's Road is going to be over on Victor Drive or come to Macon Road. So we still need, and there's a lot of people, and particularly elderly people, who have difficulty getting to some of these businesses that they really need.
Yeah.
And we would like to see more emphasis put on bringing those businesses back into the south side area of Columbus.
Yeah. And let me say, it's such a good point, and actually I was at a conference recently where they were talking about this, and it's such an important point was made. By and large, a lot of the companies you're talking about are never coming back. Not coming back to South Columbus. They're not coming back, period, because the world is changing and the markets as we knew them are changing. Sears, Kmart, Toys R Us, Amazon is changing everything, and so the world is changing, and we need to understand that our present and future success is not dependent by measuring it to what used to be successful 20, 30, 40 years ago, and so banks now, so much is being done online. It's funny. There's an age difference between me and my husband of 12 years, and he still goes to the bank. I haven't been to the bank in 10 years. I haven't walked into a bank to deposit a check or cash a check in 10 years. And he goes to the bank out, it's nostalgia for him. I don't know why. He just wants to see everybody there, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, personal, that's what he tells me. He says he has a personal relationship with his teller, which I think I'm going to just have to go down there and check out, frankly. But in any event, so times are changing. I have this gentleman who, maybe he's listening, he emails me once a week and says, Columbus is horrible. Kmart's are closing. Columbus is horrible. Toys R Us is closing. Columbus is I'm like, do you hear about the news anywhere else? Because this is not a Columbus, Georgia thing. The internet has changed the world. And so we're in this time of transition, and where we have to, everybody's worried about this. Prosperous communities are worried about this too, because they've built hundreds of thousands of square feet of these fancy malls with Neiman Marcus and all that kind of stuff, and who knows what the future of those entities are, frankly. Just because they're high dollar, that makes them a little bit more susceptible than something that's lower end. So, I don't know where we're going to be with the way we have always thought about doing business, but it probably will be less grocery stores, less banks, less brick and mortar retail, but what we will start seeing more of, and this is frankly exciting, we're already starting to see, the Chamber of Commerce is very involved. I'm sorry, they come to every single one of these, and here's the one they didn't come to, and they're probably trying to speed here because they're listening to it on the radio, but they've saw this trend for some some time. And what we are seeing a ton of now is entrepreneurialism. So instead of another, what's that black-white market, Williams-Sonoma type, right, high-end stores. We're starting to see young people open up boutique shops, people from here in Columbus opening up unique places. Like there used to be, in a way it's interesting, if you go back to the 50s kind of when people would open up their own little restaurant or open up their own little store and their family would run it, right? We kind of think of that as being quaint. That's come back in a new way. This generation, these millennials and the Gen Zs, are going to be entrepreneurs. They're going to throw up their own tent, they're going to throw up their own storefront, and they're going to open their own business. They're going to be inventors. They're going to come up with ways to do things we can't even imagine now. And so to the extent that there's bricks and mortar in the future, it's going to be a lot like what happens down on market days. It's going to be people who are renting booths and bringing unique items. And we will get out of our house and away from our computers and the internet to go buy something that's wholly unique, that's special to Columbus, that's an experience, that we can have a relationship with the person selling us tomatoes like we used to have years ago, now we're having again. So in a way, everything old is new again, but the one thing that appears not to be new again is these old, large brick and mortar shops. So I hear you, and there are other businesses. I will tell you that the one thing that does seem to be good about bricks and mortar are restaurants. People are not getting tired of restaurants. People want to go out and eat. And so as you see this vibrancy spreading throughout South Columbus, you're going to get to the tipping point, just like you did down here. We now have 27 restaurants or bars within about a 4-block area. That's incredible. Most all of them, with few exceptions, are locally owned. They're unique, more boutique-like restaurants, not chains. And that's what you're going to start seeing in the retail environment too. So thank you very much for your question. I don't say that as an excuse. If you need banks, if you need grocery stores, I hear you. We've just got to find a new way to deliver those services to those areas in today's world. We will not be able to force a Toys R Us to come and open on Victory Drive because they've seen their day is done. So thank you very much, Gladys, for that. We're at the cutoff, but one other question. If anybody had one other question. Yes, ma'am. Last question of the night.
How you doing?
Good. First name?
Kathy.
Kathy.
My question is not really it's a situation that
Okay.
I've had for 8 years.
Uh-huh.
I wrote you and Chief Warren 8 years ago about my plight of a fictitious felony sodomy charge against me with a 16-year-old male, and I am not able to acquire my grandson out of the state of Nebraska because they will not grant me custody. And I was also 4 weeks from being ordained.
Yeah.
And the AME Church also blocked my ordination because of that fictitious felony sodomy charge. And I asked you all if you all would help me because I used to be an active addict. And ma'am, I got addicted through the medical society. I had a morphine drip for 3 months. They did not properly detox me. Prior to that, I was drug-free, alcohol-free. And that's how I started on a 23-year addiction. So as I was being processed in and out of the judicial system in the prison, several incidents happened with the officers, with the court system, and they were all very bad. And I asked you to help me to bring that, to get them investigated, because I believe my civil and constitutional rights were violated.
Now let me just, and I'm sorry to stop you, but you're right with the fact that it's an individual personal issue. We're going to have to talk with you privately about that.
All right.
And we also have, there are some things that other people listening might be interested in. If you have been convicted of crimes, you've served your time, there are some expungement opportunities.
But this was not my fault.
I know, it doesn't matter about that, and surely we cannot help. That was a court issue, and that apparently happened long ago. That was for a judge. No mayor, no police chief, no sheriff can help about the validity or the justice that occurred or the injustice that occurred some time ago. But what we can do is take the reality of the situation, assess it, and if there are resources which can help you, we can point you in those directions. But there are a lot of people who were accused of a crime, perhaps convicted of a crime, served time, and then got out, and they may now have everything back together and want to vote again. They may want to obviously get a job, all the things that you need to do to have a productive and full life. And there are expungement opportunities, there are other such programs. And so please know you can call 311-653-4000, and we can give you information about that if you're listening. And then for you, ma'am, what we'll do, if you'll have a seat, then we'll get you the right folks.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much. All right, I want to thank you all for coming. Again, this concludes our